Regular meeting for the Cumberland Fire District. Today, June 26th, to order. I'm going to start off with a roll call. Commissioner Archibald?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Santoro?
Here.
Commissioner Hogan?
Here.
Commissioner Picone, welcome
Here.
aboard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scullin.
Here.
If we could stand for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a jam-packed agenda here, all very exciting information. The first thing I would like to do is swear in our newest commissioner, Vincent Picone. Let's proceed to the microphone.
That good enough for two of us.
So true. So you will say aye in your name. Okay.
Madam Chair, just raise your right hand.
Raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Vincent Picone,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and obey the laws of the United States of America
and obey the laws of the United States of America
and the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations,
and the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations,
and that I will, in all respects,
and that I will, in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Cumberland Fire District Charter
observe the provisions of the Cumberland Fire District Charter,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of Commissioner of the Cumberland Fire District.
of Commissioner of the Cumberland Fire District.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Under general announcements, thank you. I'm so happy that Commissioner Champagne is here because this is an opportunity to acknowledge the work that Commissioner Champagne has done for the town of Cumberland in a number of different capacities. As a police officer, as a firefighter, as a member of the fire committee and the first merge fire committee. In my eyes, Commissioner Champagne has done an outstanding job for the brief time that I've known him, for the 4 years that I have known him. And I would imagine that he has done an excellent job in the other capacities in the town. For someone to be so involved in their town, willing to put themselves in the public, in the limelight, and not have it ruffle, not have it create a negative environment in their lives, to always maintain a positive attitude and a belief that it is the town that is above all and above everyone. And I really believe that Commissioner Champagne felt that way, and in all of the decisions that he made, in all of the capacities that he served in, and that was his belief. So Commissioner Champagne, if you would kindly come forward, please. We have a plaque here, and I will read the plaque to you. It's presented to Ron Champagne for dedicated service to the town of Cumberland and the Cumberland Hill and the Cumberland Fire Districts, commencing as a volunteer firefighter in 1969, police officer, and commissioner for a duration of 49 years. And it is presented on this day, this 26th day of June 2018, from the Cumberland Fire District.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, there's more. We also have a couple of patches for you. One from the fire department and from Cumberland Hill Fire Department.
Thank you very much.
Best wishes in your retirement, in your actual retirement, and your move. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other general announcements? I'm going to miss you, Ron. I may need some Kleenex in a minute. Any other general announcements? Okay. Moving on. Because of your resignation, we have a void to fill. We need to elect a vice chair. And this is a true election. Personally, I would like to nominate Commissioner Hogan as vice chair. I don't know if there's anyone else who would like to nominate somebody else. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Paul Santoro.
Okay, Commissioner Santoro is being nominated. Since this is the first time I ever have to do this, I would imagine we take a roll call and identify who it is that we would like to have as the vice chair. Okay. Beginning with you, Commissioner Archibald.
Commissioner Hogan.
Commissioner Jones.
Hogan.
Commissioner Santoro.
Santoro.
Commissioner Hogan.
Hogan.
Commissioner Picone.
Commissioner Hogan.
Commissioner Scullin.
Commissioner Santoro.
And I would vote for Commissioner Hogan. And the tally is Commissioner Hogan has 5 votes, Commissioner Santoro has 2. Commissioner Hogan, you are the new vice chair. Congratulations. In addition to a void on the committee itself, there is a subcommittee void, and Commissioner Champagne was the chairperson of the Finance Subcommittee, and there are a few other people here who are on that subcommittee, but I would like to appoint, and I believe that's true, I can appoint.
You appoint.
I appoint Commissioner Archibald as the chairperson of the Finance Subcommittee. And I'm also reminded that I am appointing Commissioner Picone to the Finance Subcommittee. And Commissioner Picone, you would also be responsible to fill in any of the other subcommittees that Commissioner Champagne is on. Okay? Very good. Thank you. All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes from 5/22/2018 meeting. Is there a motion on the table? Motion to accept the minutes by Commissioner Archibald. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Commissioner Santoro. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of accepting the approval of the minutes from 5/22/2018, and Commissioner Picone, since you were not on the committee at that time, you would be abstaining from this vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? It passes 6-0. I don't believe we have any old business. So moving forward, Chief, your report, please.
Good evening. May slow down a little bit as far as runs. As you can see, there was just 361 responses for the month. The event that was planned for June 13th, as you know, has been postponed. The new elected date is October 3rd. There was some, as we've seen this week, there was some personnel changes at Reamer, and they didn't feel that they were quite prepared to support us, so they asked for a contingency till the fall. During the month, we were fortunate to have invitations from the residents of Bear Hill Village Chimney Hill and 1 Mendon Road for dinner and conversation, which all of the on-duty apparatus went to, and some of the off-duty members joined us also. And the Lusitania Club had a nice dinner and Memorial Day celebration that we participated in. The ladder testing was completed on both ladder 1 and truck 1, and there were a couple of minor violations, but nothing to take either one out of service. Those are being addressed forthcoming. And with that, we've seen quite an expanse in the Diamond Hill Park and the monastery grounds for both BMX bikes and walkers on the paths. So we've taken a pretty aggressive approach in finding the easiest ways in with the Polaris Ranger for injuries that shall occur coming up. There has been some washout damage from the winter in those areas, creating some pretty deep ravines that, if you're unfamiliar with it, could send you over the handlebars. So we are in the proactive mode in those areas with the GPS systems that most everybody has on a phone, and it's getting a familiarization to get around. So the good weather has been working with us on that.
Would there be drills upcoming for events such as this, where there has to be a rescue?
The drills have been real life. We've had like
Good
3
point.
picks already. You know, when they do a real life one, they transfer the information amongst themselves, what worked, what didn't work, what was an easier way in. And the real life is real life, so it's not like you're trying to pick a scenario out. This is what was presented to us, and this is how we handled it. And so far, it's worked well.
Excellent, that's great news. Anything else?
No.
Anyone have any questions for the chief?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
Chief, I've noticed the Central Falls Reserve ladder is back. Is that the one that failed, and I thought it was destined for the eternal junkyard of fire apparatus?
Central Falls' ladder?
Yeah.
No, that's never failed.
That's the one that the turntable failed up in one socket, and it was...
Oh, yeah, when Socket repaired it.
Oh, they did? Oh, I thought
Yeah.
it was...
No, when Socket put a new rotation motor in it.
Oh, all right, that's good. Last time we talked about it, it was almost like it was not worth doing anything with, but...
They were able to get a rotation motor when Socket picked the bill. I don't remember the cost of it. It was, for a ladder truck, I think it was only around $5,000 or $6,000, which is fairly reasonable for a ladder truck repair. And that's been back. That one, actually, when we were doing the test on our trucks, that truck was tested along with Lincoln's and Woonsocket's, and they all passed. That truck, as old as it is, out 100 feet for 1 hour with weight on the tip, had a 1/8 inch variation in the aerial.
No, very good.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were ever going to see that one again, but
No.
it was able to be fixed.
Yep.
Chief, I also notice that you have solicited proposals from commercial solar panel companies, and you're requesting a subcommittee be assigned, or members wishing to hear the proposal be notified when a meeting is set. I'd be happy to entertain a request, and I think had people volunteered to be on this committee, on this subcommittee, on the solar panels?
It's not, the reason I'm asking for help is when you do a residential, they'll incorporate it into a lease over a period of time that you agree to, where commercial, they don't do it. They want upfront costs for the installation. So there's a few things that they suggested to me, and the company that I met with is more than willing to come back out and meet with whoever decides that they want to get on a subcommittee for this process. There's just a lot of information that I just didn't have a particular time to digest to make a recommendation for. So we're probably looking at maybe an $8,000 investment to solar panel 2 buildings to offset the cost of all 4 stations. And there's only 2 buildings that are optimal because of the canopy of tree lines around the other 2. And the company's willing to offset all 4 with the generation from the 2 buildings that we put together. So there's a lot of intricacies that I would just like some direction and help on this one.
Do you think that they would be willing to come and present this to the next, the next committee meeting?
Sure.
That way we can all hear it, because I'd be interested in,
Okay.
in hearing this.
Yeah, they're amenable to anything that we wanted to put forward, so I'm sure a presentation to the whole committee would be right near wheelhouse.
Okay, that would be great, so we can put them on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Finance Director, it's Carol Ocean.
I did send the report out about a week ago. I haven't received any questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions now. If you look at the income and expense report, we are over budget through the end of May, $6,600. Excuse me?
Madam Chair, I got one question.
Oh, okay, one question, Commissioner Scullin.
Just on Webster Bank, is that the tax anticipation note?
Correct.
300,000, that's all we needed for everybody.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
For
hear
everybody
you.
get through on that 300,000?
500,000. We have a tax anticipation note of 500,000. As of this date, maybe we only used 300, Beth? We had only used 300,000 by the end of May. So we hadn't transferred all the money over yet.
Okay.
Oh, we had
Okay,
only used
all right.
200,000, I
We
guess, if there's a
borrowed
300,000
$4,500,
balance.
On the balance sheet.
On the balance sheet, right. Right, we had only transferred 200,000
Only
to
200,000,
date.
right.
Yes,
200,000,
sorry.
so-
Okay. Well, that's good news. Any other questions? Commissioner Santoro, you have a motion on the table to accept, correct? Is there a second? Commissioner Jones, was that you? Yes. Okay. All in favor of accepting the finance report, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, finance report, it passes 6-0. Okay. Next on our agenda, what, no, he can't vote. He isn't here. Yeah. Oh, okay, 7-0. Okay. Sorry. All right. This is the moment everybody's been waiting for, and this is what I've been excited about for at least 2 weeks now. A little history of what we are here for.
Well, Madam Chair, before you get too far with this,
Commissioner Scullin.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item due to it's not included in our packet, and we've had a chance to review this.
It's a presentation.
By the district.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it should be in our packet, so we have a chance to review what we're going to see, so we can ask questions and have knowledge of what we're talking about.
I'm sorry? It's not going to be voted on. Commissioner Scullin is a motion on a table to,
Second it for discussion purposes.
okay. Is there a discussion?
There's no discussion after second table. Second table, no discussion. That's it.
You had to have a, you had to make a motion.
He did.
Motion.
He made a motion.
I had to second it.
You did.
Well, let me be clear.
Madam Solicitor, right?
You did not have to second it. A motion to table does, and there's no discussion on a motion to table.
Okay.
So if you don't want to second it, you
No, I'll
don't
second
have
it.
I'll second it.
So we're ending the discussion.
to. You can't have discussion.
Can we have a presentation?
If it doesn't get tabled, yes.
It's been tabled.
No, it hasn't. It's been moved and seconded. You need a vote.
Yeah, we do need a vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, is there a vote, so let's vote on the table, let's vote on tabling this discussion. I'm doing roll call. Commissioner Jones?
No.
Commissioner Santoro?
Yes.
Commissioner Archibald?
No.
I vote no. Commissioner Hogan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacone?
No.
Commissioner Scullin?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. It's 4 to 3. We will proceed. Okay. I'm sorry? What?
I thought when you table something, it just ends.
Nope. We had a vote. Okay, so the reason we are having this presentation is because a couple of things occurred. At the town council meeting to vote in the new member of the fire committee, Commissioner Scullin brought up the point that he was very disturbed about the path that the Cumberland Fire Department was going down, and he felt that we were in grave danger and would like to see the town take over the committee, which is something that he's been advocating for a long time. The Valley Breeze picked up on it, and there was a story and a commentary by Tom Ward regarding the state of the Cumberland Fire Department. So this was actually a good thing, because something that we have not really done, and let this be a lesson to all of us, is really take a look at where we have been. We have been so wrapped up in dealing with this year and the issues that have occurred budgetarily, that we had forgotten that perhaps, maybe we really needed to take a look at where we have come from to where we are right now. So I applaud Mrs. Carol-Ocean. I applaud Ms. Carol-Ocean and the chief for doing a deep dive into the finances of the 4 districts and the result of the merge to the point we are at today. And as a prequel to this presentation that they are going to make, I think that anyone who is listening, all the citizens who are here, and anyone who watches this video afterwards, will feel much better about the state of the finances of the Cumberland Fire Department and where we are heading. So I'm going to turn this over right now to Mrs. Carol-Ocean, and I would suggest for the commissioners to maybe move down into the audience to review the presentation. And if you have questions, I think we can manage to ask those questions coming to the microphone. So I would jot down notes, and then I would like to wrap it up with a few words after this presentation. So if we could go down front. After the presentation, we will let members of the public also speak. So.
Before we begin, I did have to make a couple of minor corrections in this handout, but I think it'll be clear that the PowerPoint is correct, and the handwritten corrections were made on the reports on the handouts. All set. So the first thing I'd like to talk about are the tax rate. We're going back in time. We're going to give everybody a little bit of history. Everybody should probably knows all this already, but it's kind of a refresher. Before the merge, you can see that the tax rates for fiscal year 13, 14, and 15 were $228 for real property for Cumberland Fire. Cumberland Hill was $174, $158. North Cumberland was $168, $157, $128. Valley Falls was $205, $205, and $234. Cumberland Fire had a tiered tax rate, and you can see that tangible and commercial was $358, industrial was $543, which is double the real property rate, but had they not done that, the taxpayers, the residents, would have paid a much higher tax rate. The difference in these tax rates was not due to two districts having larger budgets or more expenses. It was because two districts had much higher assessed values than Valley Falls and Cumberland Fire. Over the years, mills were closing in Ashton and Valley Falls, and most of the available land had been developed. However, Highland Industrial Park in Cumberland Hill was expanding, and farmland was being sold and developed, and North Cumberland was also experiencing a new home construction boom as well, along with the expansion of the industrial park off of Diamond Hill Road. This created an inequity for the taxpayers. Since the district lines were not redrawn so that each district shared equal assessed values, taxpayers in two districts began to see an increase in their fire taxes, but the other two saw decreases or no increase from year to year. Yet the taxpayers were all receiving the same fire services. We now have an equalized tax rate. Go to the next page.
Assessed values.
You can see the assessed values between the four districts and the percentage of the total. Cumberland Hill and North Cumberland made up for 62% of the total assessed values. Cumberland Fire had 16% of total assessed values. So their tax rate was always going to be higher, same with Valley Falls. Because these district lines were never drawn, there was an equity. People were receiving the same services, but paying much higher tax rates in some districts.
Sure.
There has been some concern regarding the financial status of the fire district. We are not near bankruptcy, nor are we close to receivership. We are closely monitored by the Department of Revenue's Division of Municipal Finance, and if we were close to bankruptcy, they would have stepped in by now. Our cash flow has been tight, as we are a new entity that began without any reserves for unanticipated expenses. In addition to starting without reserves, the districts prior to the merge underfunded the 2015 budgets, as shown on the page titled Pre-Merge Budget versus Tax Levy. There was a cumulative deficit for that year of $531,723. North Cumberland absorbed its deficit using surplus funds. Valley Falls Fire and Cumberland Fire's deficits were absorbed by the new district, as there were no surplus funds available. After the districts merged, the newly merged district acquired expenses from the previous districts. North Cumberland had refinanced their fire truck loan in 2011. They paid off the lease at $188,000, but refinanced it at $325,000, and returned that money to the taxpayers by lowering the tax rate for the final year before the merge. They did not fully fund their budget with tax dollars during their last year and used their surplus funds created by the refinancing to fund their final budget. However, when the new district began on July 1st, 2015, it became responsible for payment of a truck loan in the amount of $157,911. That's including interest. Cumberland Fire did not fully fund its final year's budget. Hydrant fees were not included in their budget and had to be paid from the new district's budget. Valley Falls, in their final year, should have set their tax rate at $2.70 to fully fund its budget. The commissioners voted to set the tax rate at $2.45, yet it was set at $2.34, creating a budget shortfall that had to be absorbed by the new district. That resulted in a loss of $678,000 for fiscal year 15, as noted in the audit report. Cumberland Hill did not fully fund its retiree health care for 8 retirees. The retiree health care account transferred to the new district, but it only funded approximately 3 years, and the newly merged district will now have to fund this each year. However, it is a diminishing number, and as the retirees reach Medicare status, the premiums will be significantly lowered. To show that there has been a significant savings from merging the districts, I've taken the last 4 budgets from page 26 of each district's 2015 audit report. I added a conservative 4% increase to each budget for the next 4 years. The total of those 4 budgets is compared to the merged district budgets. Adjustments were made to the 2015 budget numbers for accurate comparisons. Those adjustments are noted on the report. Valley Falls and North Cumberland were sharing a fire chief, and Cumberland Fire did not have a fire chief. Their deputy chief was acting chief prior to the merge. Please note that even if we did not adjust so that each district had its own chief, the savings would still be significant. Let's go down. Yep, you can go down some more. This is a comparison graph that shows the increase. The purple lines show the total of the 4 budgets had we not merged, and the red lines show the Cumberland Fire budget that we have now. So the bottom line, you have to scroll down a little bit more, is that our year-to-date savings are approximately $3,729,825. This is a tax rate comparison I did had the districts not merged. I took the combined district estimated budgets, the net assessed values for each year, and if we had redrawn the district lines and had an equalized tax rate, you see that in 2016 it was 248, 2017 it was 254, 2018 was 230, but we had that was a reevaluation year, and for 2019 the rate would go up again to 238. And then in the next column you can see the tax rate for the merged districts. I've also shown you how much more each taxpayer would pay for houses valued at $300,000, $400,000, and $500,000 if we had not merged and the tax rates were the 248, the 254, the 230, and the 238. Our charter does not allow for more than a 4% increase to the tax levy each year. The tax rate was set at $2.14 for our first year, and this did not include a line item for reserves. The tax rate was lowered the following year, again without a line item to build a reserve account, resulting in very little room in our future budgets to create that reserve account. The Auditor General has advised us to increase the levy by 4% for at least the next 5 years to pay back last year's deficit and create a reserve account for unanticipated expenses. Because we experienced a deficit last year, along with the delinquent taxpayers, we needed to obtain a tax anticipation note to assist with cash flow until we began to receive the 2018 tax payments. We have begun collecting those taxes and expect to collect $1.5 million by the end of June and anticipate over 50% of the total billed by July 15th. The tax anticipation note will be repaid by July 11th. Also, just to be clear, there was, I saw some comments that we should be audited. The Department of Revenue in 2015 began to oversee all fire districts. We are required to file quarterly reports, and they review our monthly meetings and minutes. We have met with the Auditor General and his staff several times throughout the last 3 years, and they have been available for advice whenever we have had questions. We are also mandated to have annual audits conducted by an outside accounting firm, and these audit reports can be found on the Cumberland Fire website. In addition, the fire chief has some comments regarding some of the expenses and issues that we had post-merge.
So as we went into this in the first merge budget, and there were some capital improvements that had been undertaken, and there were some that were undertaken but not fully vetted out. We had, at one station, there was a new roof that was put on. The metal deck roof that was there had insulation board underneath it, which was all rotted. The insulation had to be removed before the new asphalt shingle roof was put on. Winter came in with no insulation, so we had heat evacuating the building right through the roof. The cost of spray-on insulation was $17,000 to get some comfort back in that building. Truck one, the compartments were shifting. By the time we got a repair shop to look at it, there was catastrophic failure in the substructure. The entire compartmentation had to be removed and a whole new subframe rebuilt, and then the compartments reattached to the truck for a cost of $18,000. We started right off in a very cold spell in the winter of '16, and we lost the heating unit at Station 4, which was a roof-mounted heating unit, which meant I had to get a crane, so that was $8,000. And while we were up there, the flat roof had also failed, so that had to be redone in the spring. At Station 5, they were in the middle of a kitchen and electrical repairs. That money was set aside. They had $25,000 for that, and that also came into being. The thing with Engine 5, although it was remortgaged, it is quickly becoming the highest maintenance vehicle in the fleet. There's been a few problems with the way that anti-pollution system works. We've had numerous problems with valves that are supposed to close that have not been covered under warranty. And Station 2, you know, we've reiterated the problems with Station 2 that we all have to revisit in the future. The factors that are very difficult in the budget process to predict those concerning manpower and injuries and illnesses and what happens to the personnel. In fiscal 18, I was accused of not funding the overtime budget properly. This fiscal 19 has the historic overtime budget amount in it. Other line items have had to be reduced to stay within the 4%. As we navigate the first 6 months of fiscal 19, if the members are healthy, we will be able to revamp some of the programs that had to be shorted. And I got to tell you, the 11 injuries that we had last year, there was not one single injury that was the same cause twice. There was 11 different causes for the 11 different injuries. So it's not like I had a piece of equipment that was on a truck that I could easily move. It was just one of those years. We were plagued with a vendetta. The district will be a little bit short this year. Fuel prices have started to increase. I've had numerous repairs with vehicles. When I was setting my budget last year, did I think that I would need to replace 2 steering boxes and a radiator and rebuild a complete engine? No, I did not, but that all happened. The steering boxes are $4,000 apiece, the radiator is $6,000, the rebuilt of the engine, you approved it, it was sickening to see how much that one was. The claims, as I said, amounted to 7 of the 11 claims were EMS responses assisting the rescue that we do not get any reimbursement for. And we are looking at some different avenues, but there is no law, there is nothing that I can hang a specific, because of this, you have to come back and give us some relief on the injuries. We assist the rescue, we get hurt, and we end up with the detriment of it. In closing, I take great offense to the near bankruptcy. We can't come back. The town will have to take over. I think they're all unfounded. The remonstrants have had no desire to obtain facts from myself or the finance director, and it's somewhat disheartening that statements are made and we have to spend our time to reiterate these facts, to put a positive light on what should be a positive event in the town. It's important to the residents to have a fire service that's effective. The fire service, as I see it today, is very effective. We have 3 engine companies and a ladder truck that respond with 12 members all the time, 24 hours a day. They train together. They've become a well-oiled machine. It's something that has taken a lot of moving from the independent district theory, where when I first started in 1973, you didn't even call for the next neighboring community. You just stayed and you handled everything with your department. And to call for another district to come and help you was almost a sign of defeat. We have come light years from that. We anticipate issues that are coming up. We work very well together, and the negative comments really take an effect on the morale of the department, which is one of the major things that I have to deal with on a daily basis. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? I'll take them from the committee first and then from the public. Commissioner Santoro, come on up here. I'm sorry? Okay. Yeah, we're finished with the presentation. The commissioners can go back to their seats. Good point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look, I even moved up.
Sure you are.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Finance Director or for the Chief?
I have a question. Chief, I know, I think everyone can appreciate that accidents on the job will happen and are unforeseen. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the efforts to reduce overtime in other areas?
The members have been, they have been very good about limiting the amount of vacation time needed. They've been very cautious with sick time use, and one of the biggest things that we do is offset 50 hours of overtime per week by the use of one of the staff deputies filling one of the daytime spots. So 50 hours has been cut right off by the use of the deputy. Unfortunately, the work that deputy was usually assigned to has now been relegated to myself and the other 2 deputies that are working. There's 3 deputies that work days, 1 in charge of fire prevention, 1 in charge of operation, and 1 in charge of training and EMS, and then myself. So we've had to fill in for the shortage.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Scullin.
a couple observations. The historical data is historical data. I've always had an objection to some of those historical data because of the way this committee operated in the first 2 years, but that's all history. The fact is, this district is not in good shape. I don't know why people, our apparatus is getting old. This district is in no financial shape to buy new apparatus. The breakdowns are going to get worse. We're living on a shoestring. Just had to borrow $500,000 in tax anticipation notes, and likely that's going to become an annual occurrence. Districts never had to do that before. So I don't know, you can spin anything any way you want, but, administrative costs are very high. When I continually hear we don't have enough people in administration. Well, really, we can't afford what we have. On a town takeover, that number drops dramatically. This is not what the taxpayers wanted. Taxpayers thought they were going to get 1 tax bill. That's never going to happen as long as it stays a district. And that's been a bone of contention in this town for a long time. So, my contention still is, and will continue to be, that at some point, sooner than later, because I don't want to see it when it's falling down on its face before somebody steps to the plate and fixes it. And I don't think there's any spin you can put on it to make it look any better, but I guess you can try.
Can I respond?
Absolutely.
It's not true that none of the districts used tax anticipation notes, because they did. So that's a false statement. Secondly, we do have a plan. We are a brand-new business. We start off as a brand-new business. The reason the historical data came into play is because after the merge, there were expenses that had to be absorbed by this new district, and at the same time, try and keep the tax rate at a reasonable rate for the taxpayers. We do have a plan in place. We are working with the Auditor General. We are building a reserve account, and we are not in dire straits. We have a plan. This is not a sinking ship.
And
Madam Chair, I just want, where do we have a reserve account? We have a deficit reduction account now. We don't have a reserve
If
account
you
anymore.
look at the 2018-19 budget, there is a line item for reserves.
We took that out because we needed a deficit reduction account.
Deficit repayment account, right. And as soon as that deficit repayment is exhausted, we will begin building a reserve account. But we are limited to the 4%.
But that's
We
a
have cut our
five-year
budget.
plan from the state.
It may be more of a 10-year plan at this point, but we have to look at it as we are a new business, and we have to look at ourselves as if we are a new business. It's a new entity.
I have a question.
Commissioners.
Mr. Carlucci, if I understand right, sorry, we've infused $200,000 into our account already of the TAN, right?
We've used more of it by now.
Okay, so then the budget we have in front of us looks at and appears that we're in the black.
This has nothing to do with the budget or profit and loss. It's just for cash flow.
But that's still considered, at the end of the day, as cash flow. That cash has been infused into that cash flow.
It's a loan. When the taxes begin coming in, we pay back the
I
net.
understand that, but this, what you've shown us tonight in this financial report, is $200,000 was infused into getting
No.
to that bottom line.
That $200,000 is not in income or expenses.
Then where does
It's
it
just
go?
moving, it's a note payable. If you look on your balance sheet, it's a
I
note
see that.
payable. It's not an expense.
And I see that, there's $300,000 left. So $200,000, where did it go?
We used it to pay bills.
Okay, so that's why we have a positive balance as it appears.
No. Has nothing to do with profit and loss.
Okay, so where did the money go? It paid bills. So what I'm saying is, as Jim was saying, money gets shifted around to these accounts. It was used to pay bills.
Money gets shifted around.
Yes.
We can borrow from ourselves. We can borrow from the retiree health care account if we want, and we put it back.
Okay.
But it's a cash flow issue. Not everybody paid their taxes last year.
I understand.
That's one problem.
I understand.
We
So-
had a deficit last year that we had to absorb this year.
I understand. So right now, as the end of May, and I think I texted you and asked, and it appears as though we're in the black. But that includes $200,000 of that TAN.
No. No, one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
How can that not?
The only
how can-
expense that you will see, and actually it doesn't show up in May, are the legal fees and financial fees associated with obtaining a TANs. It's just a movement of money.
Movement of money into paying bills is still,
It's basically taking it, it's like a car payment. I mean, we had to borrow the money for cash flow. We're putting it back as our cash starts coming in because,
I understand all of that, but Diane, you're saying you're paying bills from the TAN, that's still, that you printed out that date, 6/18, that's still part of that report. And I had some accounting in college, and I'm telling you, I'm not trying to put you on the
no,
spot or
I know,
harass
but I
you.
don't know how else to explain it. It's not
Okay.
an expense. It's a loan,
It's a loan.
right?
It-
A loan
it-
is a liability.
And the loan, I understand, but you used part of that money to pay bills.
Correct.
Thank you.
We did.
That's all I wanted to
Okay.
know.
All right.
Okay. I know, I get it. Yeah, I know, that's great, that's fine. Okay, but it appears as though, that's one thing. And now, also Diane, can you comment on, you said the past helps predict the future. And there's someone here who's gonna get upset with me and probably yell at me, but Chief, was there a year in one of the budget years in the past when we had a falsely low tax rate set?
No.
Are we sure about that?
Yes. Well, explain what you mean by false tax rate. You mean this current budget?
When we had a budget rate that was set, I think it was 2 cents below what it was supposed to be set,
We funded our budget.
at 2 cents below what the year was before.
I can't comment too much on that. I wasn't finance director at the time, but...
Chief?
Was that because of reevaluation?
No, it wasn't.
No, it was not.
No, it was...
It was for the
that we-
person to get reelected.
I believe our first year, we had a profit, and...
It was,
And we reduced the tax?
But we did not underfund our budget, if that's what you're saying. We did not underfund our budget for that year.
I watched the videos, and the person sitting here, he's gonna probably complain at the end. He pretty much bullied this committee into setting the budget.
Commissioner Santoro, you were not a part of the committee at that point in time. I think you need to refrain from making
I'm sorry,
personal
I'll
comment
take
on
that,
that.
I'll take that word away.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
He, the budget was set at the end 2 cents below what it should have been. And the following years, because there was surplus money that could be used to get through. Now, you can shake your head no all you want.
There was no surplus money.
Well, there was money that somehow, and this is what has set us on this path. And I can guarantee you that, and I can assure you that I researched this and that I'm going to get 10,000 emails, text messages in the morning that this is part of what set us up for our economic problems we're having right now. Because the financial management from a former chairman has set us up for financial disaster. I'm not saying disastrous right now. We're doing very well right now, I think, overall. The chairwoman, the solicitor, and Diane are doing, and the chief are doing wonderful work. I think we're on the road to long-term financial recovery. Long-term, okay? It's going to take baby steps. That's my opinion. But I think the past has set this committee up for a very difficult path because of past mistakes.
Well, there are people in the audience, there are people on this board who voted for that budget, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe that we had cash flow issues as a result of underfunding the overtime budget, and we also have to remember that people don't pay their taxes. And we had a year in which, and that probably is the year that you might be referring to, in which we had a finance director who was unavailable, and we really struggled with keeping abreast of things happening. And it was a tough year. And like Diane said, we are an emerging business. And I think we have a better handle on what's going on. We are moving, as you said, in a positive direction.
Mm-hmm.
So because we are not in dire needs, that states that although we may have had some issues budgetarily in the past, it's okay. We're doing okay.
Yes, I also want to comment on, and this is going to cause me more heat from people in the audience and people in town. The one person who negotiated the CBA we have right now, and this is going to, again, cause me a million emails, a single person negotiated a CBA that was voted on by 7 people and approved. It is very costly to this district. The chief told me it's about 82% of our budget. Now, our chief is left with 18% of the budget to work with to maintain the 4 stations, all the equipment, and everything else in the district, and the safety of everyone in Cumberland. 18%. Now, it's up for renegotiation in the fall, as we all know. And I hope I get reelected, and I'm able to negotiate part of that new CBA. And I've been very vocal about some concessions that have to be made, because we simply cannot sustain that current CBA and make the changes that have to happen in this town. Now, that may cost me votes, and it may make the 51 firefighters very upset. But when one person individually negotiates a contract, and I know you voted, you were part of the committee, as was Mr. Scullin.
And I was on the subcommittee.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, I was.
No, Madam Chair, you were not. It was one person.
One moment, please.
One person.
We had a subcommittee, and I was on it.
You were not, ma'am. I can get you the minutes. One person.
Okay.
One person individually, I can show you the minutes, individually negotiated the CBA, the chief's contract, and Diane's contract. The chairman negotiated that contract individually, okay? It's in the minutes. It's on record, okay? Now, that CBA is simply non-sustainable. Okay?
So Commissioner Scullin, I'm sorry, Commissioner Santoro, I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Can we focus on this year's budget?
Yes,
Because-
you said the history,
Right,
the past is what predicts the future.
okay, so,
Madam Chairwoman, can I make one comment?
absolutely.
To backtrack a little bit, Commissioner Santoro, the reason that the tax rate dropped by 2 cents was that the assessed values went up, and every time the assessed values
That's
go
what-
up,
see?
the tax rate comes down.
I was right, it was reevaluation.
Sorry, I didn't have that in front of me, but the chief just handed it over to me, and we do have that,
Okay.
black and white, if you need to see it.
All right, so I was correct, it was
Okay.
because of the reassessment, that's
It's
why
in
the
the
tax rate
pamphlet.
didn't go down.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's one of the pamphlets we handed out.
Okay.
If you say so.
Well, it did, it went down because of the reevaluation,
I don't think it was a reevaluation.
not reevaluation, but,
But there must
More
have been...
property came on
More
hand.
property came on hand, maybe some building, Highland Park.
right.
Oh, it was, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
If you say so,
I do.
I have my...
I do say so.
I have my opinion, and you're welcome to
Okay.
have our opinions.
Any other further questions?
You had another thought about the CBA, I thought.
I'm sorry?
You had
No,
no-
that's all right. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
We can move beyond that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any other further comments? I would like to take this time to invite the general public up to discuss, and I'd like to discuss about what you saw, any comments that you have. You're welcome to come to the podium and, again, state your name and your, where you live.
Ronald Champagne, 200 Hero Boulevard. I sat here tonight, and I'm just going to make a few comments that I didn't like to hear tonight, being involved in this board from day one. Mr. Sand, I don't really like politics in itself, playing to the cameras. Mr. Santoro, you're 100% wrong. There was a subcommittee of 4 of us that negotiated the contract. And that was the chairman, that was the chairperson here, the former chairman, myself, and Mr. Mata. We worked on that contract morning, day, and night. There were many, many meetings. You may not like that contract. You're entitled to like that contract, not like that contract. But you shouldn't be playing to the people. You shouldn't be going around telling the people on the sidewalk that you're going to take care of the contract and you're going to straighten it out. Now, you're entitled to your opinion, but there's a lot that go into it. There's comparison of other communities our size, there's arbitration cases, and it's all taken into consideration. So, if you have an opinion about the contract, just ask the chairwoman to be on the committee and do your work. We shouldn't be talking about contracts in public at this point in time.
Mr. Champagne?
Excuse me, let me finish my speech, and then you can make all your comments you want.
Sure.
Early on in the presentation, we had reserve money. 2 other districts had reserve money, but 2 districts turned around, and one refinanced the fire truck, indebted the fire district, the North Cumberland Fire District, and lowered the taxes to the people. And it was an attitude, and it was an attitude that was portrayed in the paper. Well, let the new committee worry about it. Then we look, and this merge was a lot of work, and a lot of hours. The chief, Diane, the clerical help, the former chairman. And what we found, we went through a lot of records of all the fire districts. And what I found was, one day, holy below, I find Valley Falls had a taxpayers meeting where the tax rate was voted on by the taxpayers at a certain amount, but the tax bills went out for a lesser amount. And there was no approval in between. Someone missed the boat. They had a lot less money because they didn't. Now, I can remember the chief saying to me one day, Ronnie, I got a problem. He said, I just sent one of the guys from the former Cumberland Hill Fire District down to Valley Falls, and he called me, and this is only a couple of weeks into the fire district, that the engine down in Valley Falls, one of the trucks got bald tires and mismatched tires. So these are all the things that we had that fire districts, knowing that the merger was coming down the line, held back on. We had to go as far as Cumberland Hill letting Valley Falls borrow money to meet payroll one June. So when we started this thing, we started in the hole because we're paying everybody else's bills and doing their repairs. And I don't like showboating when people don't have the facts. People who don't come to meetings, subcommittee meetings, don't call subcommittee meetings when they're a chair of a subcommittee, nor even visit the fire departments to see what's going on. But they throw all kinds of arrows. It's got to stop, because there's too many people that work very hard. I know the chief and Diane, even Bruce, made many trips to the State House to meet with the Auditor General. I was involved in some of those meetings, the teleconferences, and I'll tell you, they went over Diane and the chief with a fine-tooth comb. We're not in trouble. But we had a person last week, or 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, go to the town council, and we're in bankruptcy and everything else. Furthest from the truth. We're playing for politics, and this is not a political game. This is the safety of the public, our school children, and our elderly. So stop throwing arrows and be involved in the work. And don't give me this baloney as this, Jim, because there's a lot of other things I can bring up.
Thank
but I'm
you,
gonna
thank
end
you,
it there.
Commissioner Champagne.
Yeah, I'll bring up something. Cumberland Hill's $1.7 million liability in a health insurance plan that you people never funded. Throw a couple of nickels into it. Talk about bald tires.
Okay, we can do a
And we'll
lot
talk
of...
about, I gotta
Sorry.
defend Valley Falls. Chief Jack Voney was blackballed from day one of this new district. That was an ultimate disgrace. And our tax collector was blocked from all access to all records and paid to stay home. What kind of business is that? And the treasurer, he just got up and left because he wasn't gonna go sit up in the corner in Cumberland Hill and do nothing. That's why we got started off on a bad tune, because a lot of bad things happen in the back room up at Cumberland Hill. The Cumberland Hill Head Shed, that's the title of that place.
And
Anyone else from the public?
my only response is, Mr. Champagne, I will produce the minutes to prove, Ron, I will produce the minutes to
Okay.
support my comment.
Okay. Anybody else from the general public would like to make a statement? Absolutely.
Ted Vecchio, Ralco Equipment, 51 Ralco Way, Cumberland around. I just wanted to, after watching the presentation, discuss a few things about what I know about the equipment. Chief Finley and I worked very close together. He works with me, S&D Truck Repair, who I'm very friendly with the owner, Dave, Minuteman Trucks, to get the equipment fixed or repaired. One of the things that wanted to make me talk about this today after watching it was, I think there's a need for a reserve account, like you said, for new equipment. But the new equipment isn't really cracked up, all cracked up to what it's supposed to be. You're going to spend millions of dollars on stuff that's going to break just as much. I've dealt with, Ralco's been in business for almost 50 years, and we've dealt with pre-merger fire districts, not all of them, only 2. My father has dealt with chiefs before that wanted to, a truck came in and needed kingpins, they wanted to do 1 kingpin. He tells me this story all the time. He says, I'm not going to do 1 kingpin, you buy kingpins in a set, the truck only needs 1 kingpin, but there's a reason you buy them in a set. All the way through when I got involved in the business, when Chief Jack Voney was involved, he was my main contact for Valley Falls and North Cumberland when he took that over. We were doing a lot of work over there, but he was very, very, very budget, you know, if it cost me $3,000 to fix it, he would come down and want me to do it for like $1,900. And I never really understood why that was. Because first of all, I couldn't do it for $1,900. But I'd always end up trying to take money off, you know, try to do something, you know, I'll give him something else off, or a free service of some kind that would end up costing me money. Since the merger, again, only from the equipment perspective, I can say, I've dealt very close with Chief Finley, and, you know, if something needs to be fixed, we give him a price. If we're going along the way and there's a problem, I stop, I take pictures, I text it to him, he comes down, we look at it, we make the decision together on what we think we should do, and we go forward. The new ladder that was purchased came in and needed some things done right away, and then things broke. But these vehicles, this equipment gets fired up in the garage. The door opens, and it's pedal to the metal up Angel Road all the time, and I don't care if it's a 2002 or a 2010 or a 2019. That's no good, and stuff's gonna break. I see it all the time. The trucks are already underpowered, they're heavy, they're overloaded all the time. So while it's obviously great business planning to start saving money to replace the equipment, I don't think that it's necessary. It's a good, you know, obviously to have the account to save it and have the money, but I don't think we need new equipment in town just because the stuff is old. Believe it or not, in my opinion anyway, it's easier to fix the older stuff than it is to fix the newer stuff. And dealers like some of the fire truck dealers don't drop everything like Dave and I do to fix Cumberland Fire. Dealers will just put it aside. They don't need the business, where we do. So when Cumberland Fire comes in, both Dave and I stop what we're doing, assess the problem, because then it goes to a backup. They have to switch trucks. Nobody likes to do that, so I try to get the stuff done in the very same day. So no matter what we're doing, we stop. And that's just a little information on the truck side, which apparently is only part of the 18% of the entire budget. but I just wanted to let you guys know that that's where we stand, and pre-merger versus post-merger, I find it easier to deal, you know, from that perspective anyway, with the one chief and, you know, all of the trucks.
Thank you very much.
Question for
Dana? I mean, Commissioner, sorry.
Thank you, sir. What do you feel about the refurbs and in-frame majors? Is that a good way of extending life of an engine?
It just depends on, if it's a Detroit diesel, then I would definitely say no. But I love the Cummins engines, but these trucks are already underpowered, so their lifespan is very cheap, is very low. Every truck comes with like an 8.3, you know, an engine, an 8.3 Cummins for, you know, 210, or they can crank it up to 400 horsepower. You know, if it was built at 210 or 250 and they're bumping it up to 400 horsepower, it just doesn't have the torque to do the job required. Now, these things aren't supposed to go fast, you know. They're supposed to be safe and go. But when I have a power problem with any of the Cumberland trucks or any of the trucks, I do Attleboro, I do Central Falls, the first thing I do is check the engine horsepower rating, check what the engine was actually built for, not turned up to, and then I bring it to Schnitzer, which used to be State Line Steel, and I put it on the scale. And 90% of the trucks are at capacity or over capacity. So if a GVW of a truck is 55,000 and I put it on the scale and it's at 54,000 all the time, that's really not what that truck was meant for. You know, it's supposed to be, you know, GVW is 55,000 loaded. You drive, you load, you unload. The fire trucks are a completely different operation. They are loaded 100% of the time. especially if, you know, and water is, 8 gallons, 8 pounds per gallon. You know, it's just a constant battle to try to keep these trucks together. And you see it. I'm one of the subscribers to the meetings. I can't attend them all the time, and I would really like to, but I watch them after the fact. And, you know, sometimes I find myself yelling at the screen to try to say something about the trucks, because I see the bills that come in. You know, I do some of the bills that come in, and I see other repairs, and I can see how it sounds so expensive. Like, I believe last meeting, you know, Dave had a radiator for $3,000. You know, and that's cheap, really, by today's market. You know, so some of the things I do with the chief is, the town of Cumberland has accounts at Minuteman, at Bulldog Fire Apparatus. There's no money to be made in parts today, so I just order the parts, and from the dealer, they ship them to me, and they charge Cumberland Fire to try to help keep the bills down. But you can rebuilding engines is effective, but you just got to understand sometimes that the truck is built underpowered. So if you're going to rebuild at 100,000, you're only going to get another 100,000 out of it. Sometimes it's worth it. If the cab tilts, it's worth it. If the cab doesn't tilt, it's not worth it.
Sir, one thing?
Thank you very much.
Sir, one thing?
Yes.
I'd like to thank you publicly for the discount you give us to the town of Cumberland.
No problem.
It's not been acknowledged. I don't think you don't seek acknowledged recognition, but you do give us a 20% discount on our labor, and that's very admirable in this economic times, and very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much to you, sir.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I had no idea. Anybody else in the public want to comment? Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Ed LeBlanc, 3802 Diamond Hill Road in Cumberland, and I have just a couple of questions, which I think could be quickly answered. So, the 4% per year estimate on the calculations that you described as conservative, is that 4%? Is that an educated guess, or was that a deep statistical analysis into the past several years of each of the
It
individuals?
was not a deep statistical analysis. We have increased our budget an average of 4% every year since our inception. And given that we are at a 4% tax cap on our levy, I used that as a number.
Thank you. And then it was mentioned that apparently the Auditor General recommended a 4% increase for the next 5 years, and I'm just curious, was that a 4% increase just for the, apparently the reserve account, or was that 4% for the overall budget that the auditor was recommending for the next 5 years?
Well, it's 4% of our levy. We're subject to the 4% tax cap on our levy. So sometimes our budget can go up or may not be as high as 4%, or maybe could be greater or less than 4% because we do have a little bit of income from other sources. But basically, yes, 4%.
Of the overall tax?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then it was mentioned that the Auditor General reviews the budget, our budget, and apparently provides a report of some sort or correspondence?
No, we are required to file quarterly financial reports. They have a template that it's on their website. Actually, it's on the Division of Municipal Finance. If you look under fire districts, it shows you the actual reports that we have to file. It shows our cash flow, income, expenses, and that has to be done on a quarterly basis, as well as they want to see our certification report after we set our tax rate, and they want to see our budget. So we have to provide all of that to them.
But the responses that they provide, if they do provide written responses, for example, you mentioned, or it was mentioned, that the auditor made this recommendation of 4% for 5 years. So is that in writing, and is that somewhere that we can have it?
No, we meet with them. We've met with them several times.
So the only way we would learn what the auditor was, the auditor's assessment or the auditor's recommendations would be verbally through these meetings?
Or if you, I'm sure if you would like to contact them, they could provide something to you.
But nothing in writing?
I don't believe we've received anything in writing. I mean, we have.
No, I don't think so.
But there are several people that attend these meetings. It's a large group of people at the Auditor General's office. Dennis Hoyle and his whole staff meet with us. So it may not be in writing, but there's a staff of about 10 people that sit with us to discuss this.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then with respect to safety, and Chief, I know you mentioned the 11 incidents, and the root cause for each one apparently was different and distinct from the others. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, slips on ice, falling off steps, carrying, lifting.
But there were 11, and I'm just curious what action, if any, is being taken to sort of try to reduce those. Is it the 11? Is there any sort of a new safety program that's being implemented, or a physical fitness program, or some sort of standards where if someone slipped on ice because they were carrying or helping carry, a 200-pound person with 3 people, that we say, no, we're not carrying anybody unless there's 4 or 5? I'm just curious what proactive measures may be taken, if any. I'm not suggesting that any need to be taken, I'm just curious.
We have weight rooms at all the stations.
Sorry?
We have weight rooms at all the stations. Most of the firefighters participate in some type of physical fitness when they're on duty. We had a long winter. There was ice. The 3 were slips on ice, either off the steps or in driveways. We've carried sand. We've carried... we found out that Speedy Dry, which we thought would work, becomes like marbles on ice, so that only what we thought would be cleaner for us to carry turned into a very detrimental situation for us. And it's just simple things, that taking a piece of equipment off a truck, hyperextend the shoulder, tear a rotator cuff, that's an 8-month injury. I've had a couple of them. Miss a step, fall out of a truck with a back injury, required 2 surgeries. It's not like there's people out there that are just trying to get time off. These guys they're all legitimate, they're all on a plan. We have monthly reports from their doctors as they get followed up. And, as I speak now, I'm down to just 3 that are out. And hopefully 1 or 2 of those will be back in July or August.
Sure. And I'm not suggesting that they're not legitimate. And I do know we struggled with that in North Cumberland, overtime budget. And I want to say that for us, it was around 7% of our budget each year was spent on overtime. Don't quote me on that, but overtime is always a struggle for us in terms of budgeting properly for overtime.
Overtime is a struggle for every fire department in the country.
It's just a and if I could offer, the argument was made tonight that the Cumberland Fire Department's a new business, and I understand that, and I think that's a valid argument, but that argument only goes so far. We're into our 2nd chairperson now, and pretty much a new group, so I would only caution that, that argument may run its course here fairly soon, so. And I appreciate the civil discourse for the most part.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else in public want to make comments? Mr. Lemoy? Civil discourse?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. LeBlanc, just to answer a couple of questions.
Excuse me. Name and address, please.
Bruce Lemoy, 20 Melody Lane, Cumberland, Rhode Island. Thank you. If I may, Madam Chairwoman, the last 7 years of the combined districts saw an average of a 4.7% increase in the tax rate for the 4 districts. If you take the 4% that director used and made it 2%, it's still a $1.7 million savings over the last 4 years. I think that's a substantial savings to the town of Cumberland. Lastly, on the State Auditor General's Office and the Office of Municipal Financing, they have been with us from January of 2015, prior to our first budget, prior to our first merge contract. They don't put things in writing. You might be familiar with that. But I can tell you, when the chairperson quotes them incorrectly and it makes it to the paper, you get a phone call that Friday and they correct you and they ask you not to do that again. So they don't put it in writing. They are watching us tremendously closely. Matter of fact, we have 2 people on that committee that meet with us that are residents of the town of Cumberland and have been involved in that office for many, many years. They're a great source of information, and they helped us out tremendously, as well as someone who hasn't mentioned tonight is Tom Bruce, who, if you could have seen the State Department of Revenue's faces when we said we just hired Tom Bruce as our finance director, they had just all sat back and relaxed, and they knew that we were in good hands. I'm not going to chastise anybody tonight. They can have their own opinions. I know the 4 people that I work very closely with to negotiate a contract. 2-3 meetings a week. Mr. Bernardo's here tonight, and I remember his face when I gave him the schedule of meetings that we're going to have, because we had to get it done in 6 weeks. And by far, probably the fastest contract to ever be negotiated in the history of fire departments. Generally, it takes 9-10 months to renegotiate one. What's facts probably maybe not remembered is that we were handed a piece of legislation. It's available if anybody wants it, I can email it to them. It's a set of rules that we were given to merge this district. We didn't make our rules up. We had very strong guidelines to follow. One of them was the existence of 4 different contracts that stayed in force until the new one was negotiated per state legislation. Meaning, if we didn't come up with a contract, either the 4 or the 1 would have went to arbitration. There is not a case in history where salaries were ever decreased in negotiations and arbitration. Never. Madam Chairman was on the Personnel Subcommittee with me, and I know people here are making comments don't know this, so I won't ask them, because they don't have any idea, but they can have their opinions. But Madam Chairwoman, do you remember the very first article we slid across the table on the very first meeting?
I don't, I'm
The
sorry.
very first article we pushed across the table, and when you negotiate, you have a memorandum of agreement. And we pushed the first one across the table, which was signed, and it was to increase all our employees to the same wage.
Yes.
Because you can't have 2 firemen sitting next to each other, putting their life on the line, and one's making 40 grand and the other one's making 45. It's just not right. The men were shocked. They were floored, to put it bluntly. They signed it right away. They gave it back to me, and my next line was, now we have to pay for it. Now we have to figure out how to fund it. Does anybody here know the combined cost, this is Santoro, of the 4 budgets, of the 4 contracts? Do you know the combined cost of the old 4 budgets, 4 contracts? I know you don't, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek question. Do you know the final amount of the combined 4 contracts? But but they're disastrous, right? They're disastrous. The combined cost of the new labor contract versus the old 4. I know you don't, it's just kind of tongue-in-cheek question.
Why are you asking the oxymoronic question?
Because you're making some comments that you don't have all the facts to.
Okay, so
The
preface it by
four
saying
contracts merged together,
oxymoronic.
the 4 contracts merged together, wasn't an astronomical savings. We didn't save $1 million. We saved a pittance, an overall of $17,000. It's a number I'll never forget. But we saved $17,000. We'd increase it tremendously. There are men in this town who earned less after benefits and salaries that very first year than they did the last year in a separate district. That's a commitment. That's a commitment that they made to this town, and it's very important that that not get forgotten.
Of course
Because
it
there
did.
was a lot of men who gave up a lot for this new department, and still today give up a lot.
When you average
There are
40
51 firefighters,
just go on.
and there are about, I don't know how many more admins there are, 6, 5, that when you say in public, the company you're working for is going bankrupt. When you say, I'm not talking to you, Mrs. Cullen, Mrs. Santoro, I'm just talking in general. When you say in public that the company you're working for is going bankrupt, I counted one time. I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to say there's 55 employees. There's 70 mortgages, 100 car loans, 40 college payments. That puts employees in a position that I would dare say causes injuries. Because when you're worried about making your car payments, when you're worried about making your mortgage payments, because it's in the paper, the company you work for is going to go bankrupt, your mind's not all focused. So to say that is so, without financial backing, without financial data, when actually it's completely wrong, it's an embarrassment. It's a disaster. And it's not good for our district. Cumberland Fire District, for 40 years, everybody wanted it merged. Everybody wanted it merged, if not longer, Mr. Jones. I was going to say 100, but I don't know. Who knows, right? Since the 60s. We were assigned the task, and I believe with a committee of 7, and the contract was voted on, I would have to assume 5-2, as the budget was. It wasn't a 1-6 vote, with the one winning. It was a 5-2 vote generally. And the other 2 had their input. We were assigned a task to complete something that 4 years later is still here. Lastly, I'll say once again, because this is what's going to get the soundbite, $3.7 million in savings. 3.7. If you look at the meeting minutes of our first budget, you're going to see a projection over the next, it was over 7 years that I did, a projected savings of $7 million. It's in the minutes. Go look. She came up separately with 3.7 so far after 4 years. That's 2 different people working the numbers and coming up with pretty much statistically the same number. I said it before, I'll say it for the next 25 years. Cumberland Fire District is in good hands. It's got its problems. Every place has its problems. But it's in good hands. It's in good hands of the 51 firefighters, the 5 admins, a chief, and 7 board members. It's going to continue to thrive because it's in good hands. When I say good hands, I don't mean smart. I mean good people with good hearts who want to serve the community. I had a conversation 2 days ago in Dave's about the tax rate. And I said, how much you pay for your cable bill? And they rolled their eyes. I said, you're not paying a fire tax bill, you're paying an insurance policy. You're not paying for something that Mr. Bernardo does. You're paying for what Mr. Bernardo, I'm sorry, he's the only one here, so. You're paying for what Mr. Bernardo is not only able to do, but willing to do. Because he's a good person, and he's committed to this town. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this time, and I believe that, again, you're right, this is a good thing to do, and I believe that there might be a time when this town is ready. I know the mayor and I had a conversation when he first elected about the tax bill. He made a decision at that time that was best for the town. It wasn't one I agreed with, but we had a civil discussion, said fine, and we moved on. And maybe that was about the tax rate being on the same bill, not about merging. And maybe one day it'll happen. Maybe one day it'll be a town department. But there are certain things that have to get done before that can happen. And I hope to see it one day. But right now, we're in good hands. And $3.7 million in savings is nothing to shake a stick at. And I want to thank everyone who's involved with it.
Mr. Lemoy, may I ask you a question? Madam Chair, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Mr. Lemoy?
You don't have to
She said
answer.
yes.
You don't have to answer.
Oh, at the microphone. Okay. Do you believe that when this went before the town, and the town voters voted to put the districts all into one, that they wanted it to be a separate district, or to be part of the town itself, and on one tax bill, which would be a tax bill that came all together, including...
Well, Mr. Santoro, before you finish asking your question, do you remember what the ballot question was even?
Yes,
What is it?
to make one fire tax.
No, it was not.
It should be a merger of the fire districts.
No, it was not.
Okay, tell me what it was.
Why should I answer your question, Mr. Santoro, when you make statements, you don't have all the facts? The ballot question was
Okay.
simply was, does the town of Cumberland want a single fire service, either town, single district, or regional?
Okay.
It included regional, which means we could have merged, according to that ballot question, merged with Lincoln.
Okay.
It also said to result in a fire department, state-of-the-art fire department, which
Okay.
we aren't close to having yet, okay? So what I believe is what the taxpayers wanted and voted on, they wanted either a district, a town department, or a regional department. That's the correct answer.
Okay, so, thank you for your correction. I apologize for my facts being wrong. I'm getting a lot going on right now. You answered my question very eloquently. Thank you very much, sir. Do you believe the intent was a town fire district run by the town, as in the mayor as a public safety director, right? That's his role, one of his roles.
I just answered that question, Mr. Santoro. The town, my understanding was the town people wanted either a town-wide department,
Wait,
a single fire district.
A
Let
town-wide?
me finish, Mr. Santoro.
Go ahead.
I believe, and I just answered it, I'll answer it again. The town of Cumberland wanted either a town-wide department a townwide fire district or a regional department, resulting in a state-of-the-art fire service for the town of Cumberland.
Thank you. So how was the decision made of one of those three choices to go with a district?
I wasn't part of that decision. That was a committee put together.
Of?
I don't even remember. I think Mr. Murray was on that when he was on the council. There was one committee, then there was another committee, and then there was another committee, and then the state stepped in and said, here's your state legislation. So I don't know how it was decided, quite frankly. I wasn't part of that decision.
So how about today?
Huh?
How about right now, today, tonight as we speak, how do you feel?
I just said that, Mr. Santoro.
No, as your personal,
I just told you
This is...
that I believe,
This is going nowhere.
I
Thank you.
believe that
Okay,
the
thank you.
town...
Thank you. That was my only question. Thank you very much.
Right.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other public comment? Mr. Kutsiani?
Philip Kutsiani, 3 Old Hickory Drive, Cumberland, Rhode Island. My remarks will be very brief. I know it's a very difficult job to sit on this committee. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have to make some tough decisions. But I have to point out some facts which have been pointed out by other people tonight in regards to some of the comments that have been made. First of all, Commissioner Santoro, I think you're incorrect in regards to your 82% in regards to personnel costs. I think it's higher. When you take into account wages, benefits, and other things that are involved with it, it goes higher than 82% of the total budget. So it's a big portion of the budget. My last 3 years prior to coming on this committee was spent as the chairperson of the North Cumberland Fire District. We kept our budget intact, with one exception, when they had to buy a fire truck. Prior to that, Mr. LeBlanc was the chairperson. He kept it intact. I don't want to point fingers on Cumberland Hill, Valley Falls, or the Cumberland Fire District. We all had our unique problems. But when this merger was talked about, it may not have been in the resolution, but one of the aspects was to save money. Combine everything, get rid of duplication, save money. It has not turned out that way. When this merger took place with this commission, there were a lot of expenses that had to be taken care of. When they talked about the collective bargaining agreement, it was by a committee of 4. But attempts were made, and I personally made it during open meetings. Let's go into executive session with the entire committee to discuss it. Maybe we have some ideas. It was not accepted. When this merger, just prior to officially taking place, we said in North Cumberland that the merger can work as long as all parties of interest make it work. I don't think there's been the savings here. I know Ms. Carolishan has put together a lot of numbers here. I have some of my own numbers. I heard Mr. Lamoy make some numbers here. I disagree with his conclusions about the savings. He talks about the tax rates, the total budgets. My figures are different. I made an attempt when I was on this to discuss the same with him in open meetings. Wasn't accepted. Be that as it may, you have a tough job, but keep in mind there's multiple interests that have to be protected here. It's not only the efficiency of the fire department, the safety of the personnel, but also the taxpayers. And I think we've lost track of that important goal. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to express some of my feelings again. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Cucciani. Any other public comment?
Madam Chair, if I could answer Mr. Santoro's question on the fire district.
Yes.
It's part of Senate 0958, adopted May 22nd, 2013, relating to the consolidation of the Cumberland, North Cumberland, Cumberland Hill, and Valley Falls fire districts into the Cumberland Fire District. So we were mandated by state law to become a fire district.
Thank you. Okay. One second, please. Thank you. Before we continue, and we will take a very brief break here before we finish up with our agenda, I first want to thank Diane and the chief for putting together this presentation. I know how much work went into it, and you know, for the people who love data, I'm sure you had fun doing this, because I know I would have if I was doing it, but I had to sit on the sidelines. You had it all. So, and being able to really put something together that's understandable, pointing out where we are excelling. We all know that we have to, our business is relying on taxpayers' money. And, you know, we ask taxpayers, please pay your taxes so that you don't lose your homes. And this is the way it's always going to be. So as we get towards the end of each year, you know, like it is if you get paid monthly, when you get to the end of the month, you kind of counting pennies to see what you have left. And it's the same thing with the fire district. But I'm really proud. I am so proud of everyone who has been working. I'm proud of the people who came before us. I'm proud of the people here. I'm very proud of the staff that's running the fire department. I'm very proud of the firefighters themselves, because I know that we all have the same mission, and it's to save lives and protect property. And I think that, above all, we are doing an excellent job at that, and I know we will continue to do that. And as we move forward, as we really get a handle on budgetary issues, we'll see what this year looks like in terms of injuries, and maybe we'll have a little bit of wiggle room come March. And then we can look at the tax rate, and maybe our long-term goal is we will be able to reduce the tax rate, which is what everybody would like to see. So that is my hope, and I applaud you and I congratulate you for an excellent job. And I hope this satisfies the naysayers, and I hope it educates everyone who is here that, and you feel better, and I hope that word gets back to the fire department that, no, we're not in trouble. Please relax. You do a great job. We don't want to affect that. Moving forward, I see nothing but great things for Cumberland Fire Department, so thank you. And if we could take a very short break, I would appreciate that.
Is he done going pee-pee now, or going? I said, is he done going pee-pee?
I think Cindy's waiting for you. Oh, Dana too. No, she's not mad. She just wants to get.
I'd like to call this back into order. Moving on to resolution number 16. Authorizing the business manager to pay S&D Road Service an amount not to exceed $2,871.34. All repairs have been made with the approval by the chief, Therefore, the business manager will pay S&D Road Service an amount not to exceed $2,871.34.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Scull and seconded by Commissioner Archibald. All in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next resolution. Number 17, authorizing the business manager to pay Ralco Equipment Company an amount not to exceed $4,226.73. All repairs have been made with the approval of the chief. Is there a motion on the table?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Scullin, seconded by Commissioner Santoro, or was that Commissioner Jones? Archibald, seconded by Commissioner Archibald. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of approving this resolution number 17, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Last resolution. Number 18, authorizing the finance director to abate and/or adjust the amount of $662.59. The finance director has determined that various tax items should be abated and/or adjusted in the amount of $662.59. For reasons noted, please review that on duplicate billing, town lowered assessed value, should have received an exemption, condo should not have been taxed until certificate of occupancy was issued, does not own sold property. Those are the reasons why. Is there a motion on the table? Motion to accept by Commissioner Archibald, seconded?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Scullin. Is there a discussion? All in favor of accepting the 18th resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Any public input? Once again, I would like to publicly thank Diane and the chief for the information that you have put together for us, and I hope that it clarifies everything to everyone's happiness, and I look forward to continuing working with such fine people. At this point in time...
Motion to adjourn. Motion. Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Scullin, seconded by Commissioner Santoro. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?